Well, good afternoon and welcome to this iThemes training webinar. We're glad you've joined us for Disaster Week here for February 2020. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host here at iThemes Training. And today and for the rest of this week, I am joined by Michael Moore. Michael's the Associate Product Manager for iThemes. And after several years of working in support, today Michael is focused on innovating new features and products to serve the iThemes community. Welcome, Michael. Glad you're with us this week.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I am super excited to be here.
Excellent. We've got a great week of webinars for you all this week. I'm so excited to see a lot of first-timers here to iThemes Training, several people checking in the chat room. This is their first iThemes Training webinar, and looking forward to introducing you to our community and to all this wonderful training that we do on a regular basis, and most of it is free. So the several questions that popped up already. Are there slides? Yes, we've dropped the slide link in the chat room. If you're just joining us and go to webinar, I think we have increased about 40 people since we just started about a minute ago. So iThemes.com/chat. iThemes.com/chat is the chat room. That is the place to get your questions answered as we go throughout today's webinar. I've also posted the replay link where you can watch the replay of all of these videos from WordPress Disaster Week. I just dropped that in once again. So slide link is in the chat room as well as the replay link. So Michael, as we look at what's coming up today, give us just an overview of what we're going to be looking at in the next couple of hours.
All right, over the next couple of hours, we're going to cover three main things. The first thing is we're going to talk about how to lock down your site to really harden your WordPress security to help decrease the likelihood that any kind of attack on your site will be successful. Now, the second thing is going to be about the balance between usability and security. How do you set security up in a way that it locks down your site but stays out of your way, or without getting in your way? And then also the third thing we're going to talk about is just some best practices and some overall things that you can think about to help mitigate you putting your site at risk.
Lots coming up today. We should be wrapping up somewhere around 3 o'clock Central, but we want to make sure that we have plenty of time for your questions. We love to answer questions live, and you're with Michael here on as our presenter today. Michael's answered thousands, probably 10,000 or more tickets from the iTheme security product as he was in support. He definitely knows about WordPress security, and so you have your opportunity now to ask your questions live, and we will do our best to get those questions answered for you here during the live chat. Several bits of housekeeping as we get started. I see lots of folks are asking questions in the GoToWebinar control panel, and I'd like to invite you over to our live chat room at iThemes.com/chat. iThemes.com/chat. That's the place to ask your questions as we go today. There's usually some good links and other resources shared in that chat room from me and other community members as we go. So it's a better place to have open alongside the webinar as we go today. So again, that's at iThemes.com/chat. So join us over there if you have not yet already. You'll find links to the replay as well as slides that's already been posted. You might have to scroll up just a little bit to see those. A couple of other notes. As you ask questions, it's always helpful to preface your question by the word question in all uppercase. And for those wondering why we use a chat room, well, the reason is a lot of folks can like to share resources, but also, in addition to that, it gives me the opportunity to ask clarifying questions. So oftentimes in a webinar like this, a question is asked and not quite sure exactly what you're meaning. So if you ask a question, just watch the chat room again for a minute or so, because I might need to get some clarification on the question you just asked. So when we get that over to Michael, he has a good answerable question. All right, so once more, iThemes.com/chat. Today, we're going to be talking all about preventing disasters from happening, but we have a lot coming up the rest of the week. So tomorrow, we're going to be talking about recovering from a disaster, how to know you've been hacked, how to restore backups and recover from a hacked situation. And on Wednesday, I'm really excited because I'll be able to share with you on the client side of security and how to prepare a site for a client with security and usability in mind, how to package and price security services for clients, and then how to sell those services as well. So we got a lot of information coming up for you this week, and I am super excited about this week and what all it can mean to you and your use of WordPress and your business. So, Michael, let's dive in and start talking about preventing disasters from happening.
All right, perfect. And just so everyone knows, we will be talking about general ways to secure and then also recover your site. But if you want to follow along with the webinar, don't forget to check out the 2-for-1 combo deal that we're running just specially for webinar attendees. So you can get the combination of iThemes and Backup Buddy for the price of one. And then we're also throwing in some extra stash, which we'll talk about exactly what stash is tomorrow. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so first thing we should talk about is what is the cost of your site getting hacked? So loss of revenue during downtime. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when your site does become hacked, or let's say it is a victim of ransomware, your site is going to, you're going to lose access to your site, or the site's going to be down for a period of time while you get that corrected. Now, the average downtime from a ransomware attack is actually 9.5 days. So if you're running any kind of e-commerce solution, think about going 9.5 days without any revenue coming in. Now, you also have to think about the cost of getting your site clean. If this is an especially atrocious hack and you don't have a clean backup to use to recover your site, you're going to have to pay to get your site cleaned. Then the cost of time to inform customers of the breach. So this is not only going to be reaching out to your customers, but you're going to have to craft the message in just a way that you can try to regain any confidence that they may have lost to you within the correspondence with them. And also, just if your site ends up getting blacklisted by Google because it is hacked, think about your search engine results. So anyone that enters in your URL or any SEO that you worked super hard to rank for, all of a sudden Google's going to have a caveat there. Hey, this site is blacklisted. Be very wary about entering. And also the loss of customer trust. There is not all of us are lucky enough to be like Huawei, or not Huawei, OnePlus. They actually have been a victim of multiple attacks, and somehow the customers still love them. And then if your brand is as strong as OnePlus, good for you. But unfortunately for a lot of us, the loss of customer trust you get when you, after informing them that their account has been hacked or some of their personal data has been compromised as part of a breach, can really affect returning revenue. But the great news is that most hacks can be prevented with a few simple security measures. So that is what excites me most about doing these types of webinars, is the tools that we can share with people to help secure their site, to prevent them from becoming another victim of some random attack. So let's talk about the first thing you should think about when it comes to security. It's all about choosing quality hosting. So not all web hosts are going to be created equal. And choosing one solely on price could end up costing you in the long run, because I have seen, again, my background initially with iThemes was in support, and the number of shared hosting environments that I went into that were running outdated versions of PHP versions that reached end of life. And when a piece of software reaches the end of its life, that means that even if a security exploit is found in that old version and is made publicly known, that is not going to receive a security patch. And then if it doesn't receive that security patch, you're pretty much just having a blueprint on your server of exactly how an attacker can attack you. So right now, 60.9% of WordPress sites are running an out-of-date version of WordPress, because sometimes some of these hosts don't let you enable auto update. But the good news is, last year when Nathan and I did a similar webinar, this is actually a 4% improvement over last year. So more sites this year are running the most up-to-date version of WordPress. And then another thing to think about is that 21% of sites are running a version of MySQL that will reach end of life by the end of this year. So you want to make sure that you are running 5.7 or above, but Oracle does recommend that everyone be using version 8.0. And then more good news, this is a 19% improvement over last year. And then 58.2% of websites are running a version of PHP that has reached end of life. That means there is still almost half of all sites are running a version of PHP that is no longer receiving security patches. Now, you should be using version 7.3 or above. And more good news here, this is actually a 17.3% improvement over last year. And then just so everyone knows, PHP 7.2 is no longer being actively supported, and it will stop receiving security updates in November 2020 this year. So if by November your host has not updated you, or really by, I would say September, to make sure that you follow up with them, say, hey, come on, guys, we need to make sure that we're getting to 7.3 or 7.4. And then, yes, like I said, all these numbers have increased from last year. Now, if you are using Backup Buddy, an easy way for you to figure this out is by going to the Diagnostics tab and then going over here to Server. And not only will you see the suggestions, the minimum version recommendations by WordPress, you can also see what versions that you're running over here. So you can see that PHP version minimums 5.3, WordPress recommends 7.0 or above. On this server, we're running 7.2.24. So if you do have Backup Buddy installed, this is a good way for you to quickly check to see what software versions are running on your server to make sure you are running the latest versions of everything. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is securing your WordPress login. Now, your WordPress login is going to be the most attacked part of your site. And the reason is that it is the easiest part of your site to attack, because it's well known. It's just like, think about your WordPress admin being like the front doors of Best Buy. So you want to make it easy for people to find it, and so they can log in and gain access to their account, if they're a customer, or if they're a contributor to the site in some fashion. You want them to be able to find it, and you want it to be easy for them to access the back end. You don't want to put too many hoops in there. So just keep in mind that we're going to want to secure your login. So there's 5 things to think about when you are creating a WordPress login security strategy. You're going to want to limit login attempts, limit outside authentication attempts, require users to use strong passwords, use a unique password for every account, and then also use 2-factor authentication. So by default, WordPress does not limit failed login attempts. Without this, WordPress can be an easy target for brute force attacks. Now, a brute force attack is the type of attack where a bot scours the internet, finds a WordPress login, and then will randomly try to guess a correct combination of username and password to log into your site. So you're going to want to limit failed login attempts that way. So after a bot that is attacking your site, trying to find a way into your backend, once they reach this threshold, bam, you lock them out, and they can no longer attack that site. It's a very easy thing you can do. And brute force attacks are super, super common. And the reason why they are so common is because the barrier of entry to perform a brute force attack is super low. At one point, I did a Google search and I found probably 300 different tools that you can use without any coding requirements to find WordPress admins and commit brute force attacks on them. But the good news is, like I said earlier, they're easy. They happen all the time, but they're really easy to prevent from being successful. And one of the ways you can prevent this, prevent brute force attacks from being successful is by limiting outside authentication attempts. This means not only do you need to secure the WordPress login that you find in the browser, there's other ways to log in, like other methods of logging in, like XML RPC and the REST API. And now with XMLRPC, you can do, I think it's like 235 username and password attempts in a single request. Now, using the iTheme Security Pro restricted access feature, you can limit the number of login attempts to 1 per request, drastically reducing the likelihood of a successful brute force attack when it comes via the XMLRPC request. Now let's talk about passwords. First of all, you should be using a strong password, but what does a strong password look like? You should be using a minimum of 12 characters. And the reason why is a 7-character password will actually only take roughly 2.29 milliseconds to crack. 8-character password will take up to 5 hours. And once you move all the way up to the 12 characters, it will take up to 2 centuries to crack. Now, another thing you want to do is avoid using sequential strings like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is still the number as far as 2019 Splash Data Report, where they look at all the most commonly used passwords that appeared in database breaches. Still, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the most common password found in those database breaches. So don't use that. You're making it really, really easy for your site to become a victim of a brute force attack. And you're going to want to use a large pool of characters. So using only lowercase characters limits the possible pool of characters to 26. That's why it's vital to use uppercase letters and common ASCII characters like exclamation points, percentage signs, to increase the pool of characters needed to crack the password to 92. Now, there's a big difference between 26 and 92 when it comes to trying to crack the passwords. Now, you can't control whether or not people are reusing passwords on your site, but you can force people to use strong passwords. And another thing to think about is, unfortunately, some hackers are starting to leverage GPUs and stronger CPUs to decrease the amount of time needed to crack passwords. So just to give an example, an Intel Core Quad 2.6 gigahertz will be able to guess 370 passwords per second. But an NVIDIA GTX 980, which is a graphical card, a video card, and this particular card was released in 2014, and it can guess, sorry, I have it right here in my notes. It can do like, sorry, I don't have that exact number here, but it was like over 2,000 passwords per second compared to just the 370 by the Intel processor. So more and more is becoming important to make sure that we are not reusing passwords and we are using strong passwords. Now, the iTheme Security Pro password requirement feature, let's go and take a look at that real quick. What this allows you to do is you can force administrator users or anyone who contributes to the site to use a strong password. You can enable password expiration, and you can also refuse compromised passwords. Now, what do I mean with this right here? So using the Have I Been Pwned API, or Have I Been Pwned API, sorry, they keep track of all the different passwords that have appeared and the different database breaches they accumulate. So what we'll do is, once someone is changing their password or updating their password, we will send that to a hash of the password, which means it's encrypted, to compare it against their database. And if that's ever been appeared in a breach, we'll protect your site and by allowing you to refuse the password from refuse the compromised passwords. The Have I Been Pwned API is great. It's great that they have made this available for everyone, and it gives everyone an opportunity to really, really secure their site. And that's why it's so important to use a unique password for every account, because these hackers are getting a hold of these huge databases of compromised passwords with with the different combinations of email passwords or email addresses and passwords. I've had, I suspect, 2 members of my family who have actually have not succumbed to my preaching of using strong passwords, never reusing a password, and using two-factor authentication, and have had their accounts hacked. The most recent of which was last month, my wife had her eBay account hacked because she was using a combination of username and password that I then looked up on that Have I Been Pwned API. That combination of username and password was part of 4 different breaches. And so someone was able to use that information, log into her eBay account, and create a credit card using her information. Luckily, it was easy for her to get cleaned up, but and so there was no long-term ramifications for that, but she still had to spend the time to get in touch with eBay. Hey, it looks like someone's created a credit card. That wasn't me. What do we need to do? But again, it just goes to show that with these different tools that people can use, that they just hook up this database of like common usernames, common passwords, and then just scroll around and then can see possibly different accounts that this email address is associated with. That to protect yourself, you need to use a unique password for every account. And that's why I recommend using a password manager like LastPass, because it makes it easy for you to generate a random and secure password and easily keep track of all your unique and strong passwords. You can easily change passwords with it, and has a safe and convenient autofill feature. So for me, using LastPass is even easier than using the same password for every single site, because I have LastPass installed on all my devices, and on my phone, anytime I'm logging into something, it connects directly to the Face ID. And so I just look at my phone and it logs me right in. Don't have to press any buttons. Don't have to even think about username or password. On my browser, I just have an autofill feature. And a lot of times it just has a little, within the username and password field, it has a little LastPass thing. Just click that and then have it fill in my username and password. And I'm actually logging into these places faster using a password manager than using a password like 12345. So if you aren't using a password manager, I would highly recommend it. And using two-factor authentication on your logins is going to add a very strong layer of security. And what two-factor is, it requires a unique token along with the username and password to log in. So any method of two-factor is better than none, but there are some that are better than others. So I would not recommend using SMS, which is just receiving that two-factor token via text message. And then there's also email. There's single use codes. These are usually like labeled as like backup codes. Mobile app like Authy or Google Authenticator or YubiKey, which is like a USB device that makes it super easy to use two-factor and makes it really secure for all your different accounts. So you shouldn't be using two-factor, and part of the reason is a lot of times this stuff is easy to intercept, especially if you're on any kind of public Wi-Fi. That makes it easier to intercept. And then also with the increase of SIM hacking, what SIM hacking is when someone is able to get your phone number ported to a new SIM card, changing the device that is being used. So they get your phone number, port it over to a phone that they're using, and then when they're logging into your bank account, they can get your two-factor delivered to their phone instead of having it delivered to the phone that you actually own. So that's why I definitely wouldn't recommend using two-factor or text message to receive your two-factor authentication token. And then just so you guys know, the National Institute of Science and Technology, they have officially recommend everyone stop using it. They deprecated that as a recommended two-factor source. Now, really, for most people, As of right now, the best thing to do for a two-factor authentication is going to be a mobile application. So you can get this in any of your app stores, both on Google Play and on iOS. But there's Google Authenticator and there's Authy. I personally use Authy. The reason why is because it's available in my web browser. It's available on all my different devices, and as compared to like Google Authenticator, which is going to be limited to a single device. And so I had a Nexus phone that just got stuck in a boot loop and stopped working on me one day. And it made it so I could not access any of my two-factor tokens, which meant I couldn't access any of my accounts, including my work email. And so after that happened, I did switch over to Authy because they have a encrypted cloud backup that they can't even see, but you put in your strong password in there. Like I have that this super secure long password stored in my LastPass. So anytime I put Authy on a new device, I just copy that code from LastPass into Authy, and then it's going to give me access to all my different two-factor tokens. And then let me pull up the desktop app real quick just to give you an example of what this looks like. Oops, I'm gonna have to change screens. Okay, here we go. So these are different accounts that I have on Authy. And then if I click on any of these, it's gonna give you my two-factor tokens to make it easy for me to, I can access these anywhere. So all my accounts that I have two-factor on, which is any account that makes it available to me, I can just simply click on one of these. We'll just look at this one because this is a not a real one, so it's no harm in showing it. But this is the two-factor token that I can just copy and then paste in to the two-factor field that's requiring it. And another great thing about these codes only last, they're time sensitive. So after 30 seconds, you get a new code. And if I enter in that last code after this time has passed, I'm not going to be able to log in. So using an app like Authy to require another physical device along with your username and password is super beneficial. And Google even says that with any kind of like bot or phishing attack, using two-factor authentication actually will stop 100% of those attacks. So we're talking about prevention here. So I'm going to repeat this. Google said on their blog that using two-factor authentication will protect you against 100% of bot attacks. So there is nothing better than 100% effective. So if you go to iThemes.com and look up two-factor, we have different instructions on how to use it and more information if you want to follow up more on that. So if you just Google iTheme security and two-factor authentication if you want to receive more information about that. But again, 100% effective against bots. That's what all of today is about, is prevention. So I want to stress that. Now, using iThemes two-factor and security check, you can enable the mobile app method of two-factor, email two-factor, which means that you're receiving the two-factor token to your email address, and then your backup verification codes, which is just, again, those like one time you download them, you store them in LastPass, and for whatever reason you can't access your two-factor codes via email or via your mobile app, you'll still have a way to log in. And then again, using two-factor, you can enforce specific users to use two-factor. So anyone adding to the site, you should be forcing two-factor on them. You can enforce two-factor for vulnerable users. So let's say that one of your users' name has been identified and then it is being inundated with brute force attacks using that username. This will automatically enable two-factor for them. And then, or if they are using a weak password, it will lock down their account by enabling two-factor for them. And then also, if your site is running any outdated software, you can enable two-factor to make sure that you are secure. This will enable it when it's a version behind. And then also, like one good thing, again, we're talking about earlier, usability. How can you guide people through and make it easy for them to enable two-factor? And then we have a great onboarding process. So once it's enabled, you logged in, you go through it, and then it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to enable two-factor for your account. I created a site for a less than technical buddy of mine, and he was able to use that two-factor flow to lock down his account for the site that I helped create for him. And then he had the confidence of knowing that, okay, like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but like, I know that my account is secure. I don't have to worry about it. And then using the security check, you can see which users are using their two-factor or not. So real quick, let's just go ahead and take a look at some of these two-factor settings. So, so what I would recommend is that you use a forced two-factor on anyone that can make edits to your site. So here you can see that I have it enabled for authors, because they're going to be able to write blog posts. So even with someone with as low as level as author, if their account gets hacked, a bot will still be able to use that account to put spam advertisements on your website. And that's a great reason to have them use two-factor authentication. And then you can decide that, let's say you don't want a particular set of users to see the two-factor onboarding feature. You can disable it for them here. And another cool thing that you can do using two-factor authentication is allow, once the trusted devices feature is enabled, which the trusted devices feature will help identify that this user is using this device to log into the site. We're going to assign this device to that user. And so when that is enabled and they have a trusted device, they'll be able to check hey, you know that this is me. I'm using the same computer all the time. For the next 30 days, don't make me enter a two-factor token, because you know where I'm coming from. And this is a vulnerable protection I talked about earlier. Let's go ahead and lock down the site when there is any known kind of weaknesses on your site. So we can lock it down to really secure and protect your site really when it needs it the most. This is all about securing your site when you need it the most. Is someone using a weak password? Is their account being brute force attacked? Well, let's lock it down. Let's lock it down. That's just smart security right there. So again, two-factor authentication, I can't stress the importance enough. And this is how I felt when my brother laughed at me and said, "You really use two-factor authentication?" And like, it's too inconvenient. I can't use it. And then one of his accounts got hacked. It's like, so did you really say, is it too inconvenient? What's more inconvenient? Adding an extra code every once in a while when you log in, or having to go and clean up the mess of having your account hacked? Prove that it wasn't you, that like my wife had to do, prove that it wasn't her that opened up that credit card and then had $900 worth of charges, had to get that cleaned up. And a bit of personal information. We're working on building up her credit so we can refinance our home loan. And guess what that did? That delayed the process, just because we weren't using, or she wasn't using two-factor to protect her account. That temporarily made her credit score go down because her credit usage went up. And then also there was a new check on her credit. Okay, so another great reason to seriously use strong passwords and two-factor authentication, Gentoo, which is a Linux distribution, they had a GitHub mirror that was, it had a GitHub mirror where one of their admin accounts got hacked. And even though he was using a unique password, and it wasn't even using a password, the compromised password was actually super similar to a password that was hacked on a different account. So let's say, for example, they had security is great for one of their passwords, and then they had security is great too on another account. They were similar enough that when that other account, that first account, got hacked, they were able to use that combination of email and password to log into their GitHub account. Okay, so first of all, shouldn't have been using passwords so similar, but guess what? If you would have just been using two-factor, your GitHub account wouldn't have been hacked in the first place. Because so what this attacker was able to do was log in to their Gentoo mirror and then delete the admin account of every single one of their admin users. So all those were gone. So there was only one admin user to rule them all, and it wasn't anyone who was actually supposed to be in their GitHub account. So again, it is your strong password is going to be your first really good defense, and two-factor authentication is like your go-to. It's like if you have beast mode and you're on the Super Bowl and you have 1 yard to score a touchdown, you give it to beast mode. You don't throw it. Anyways, that's a whole different sports thing that we don't need to talk about right now. But it's really, really good. And then I don't know if you guys remember the this over the holiday, the Christmas holiday, a bunch of people bought Ring cameras, Ring doorbells, Ring everything else. And if you saw the one story that Vice reported on, where the family little girl had a Alexa in her room or a Nest camera in her room, and some creepy attacker was able to get into their Ring account and then scare this little girl by talking through the speaker. And guess what? If they would have been using two-factor authentication, that wouldn't have happened. That's why now Ring has changed their account requirements, and they now require everyone to use two-factor authentication. Because even though it wasn't Ring's fault that this family was probably using a weak password, along with not using two-factor authentication, guess who got the blame? Amazon got the blame. Everyone's like, why aren't you doing more, Amazon? And so now they are just saying, hey, guess what? Like, we're not taking the blame anymore. You're all using two-factor. If you find this too inconvenient, you can't use our product, because that's how important it is, and that's how much confidence they have in knowing that two-factor will lock down people's sites. The iTheme Security Trusted Devices feature is something we talked about earlier. And what is cool about the Trusted Devices feature, let's say that I have it enabled it on my account, and then I am one of those people who are using a weak password and I'm not using two-factor authentication. If someone else is able to then brute force my account, once they get to the WordPress dashboard, it's going to be like, oh, wait a minute, you need to confirm that this new device is you. And until you do, you're going to lose all admin level capabilities. So when that happens, all this stuff will just disappear. And then they'll have a login alert with the trusted devices feature, and they'll have to also have access to your email account to confirm the device is actually yours. And all this is never going to be available for them. So even if they do get access to your account, they're not going to be able to actually do any damage, which is just another great way to prevent yourself. It's just about how can we add as many layers as possible to protect our accounts from becoming compromised, because the last thing we ever want is for our accounts to be the weak chain in the link that causes damage to our site, costs people money, and in some cases costs people's jobs. So it's just another great thing that you can do to add another layer of security is if someone does hack in, let's get rid of all this stuff. Let's make sure they can't do anything. So that is another great thing. But before we go any further, do we have any questions piling up, Nathan, that we should ask before we jump ahead?
Oh, do we have questions? Yes, we do.
Whew, good.
All right. So several questions. Okay, so if you have questions you haven't asked yet, or if you haven't seen me say I've got your question saved, go ahead and drop that in the chat room at iThemes.com/chat, iThemes.com/chat. I've got quite a stack of questions, and we're going to get ready to get those over to Michael now. Okay, so Steve would like to know, what are the security implications of XML RPC? He's seeing it getting a lot of brute force attacks.
Well, if you are using, this is even on the iTheme Security. We have iTheme Security Pro, then we also have a free version of iTheme Security that is on the WordPress.org repo. But if you go to, it is under System Tweaks, and then go down to, oh, I'm sorry, it's going to be WordPress Tweaks. Sorry. Okay, right here. And then you go to XMLRPC, and then you, right here, block multiple authentication attempts. this is what you need to do right here. And again, you can get this using both iTheme Security, the free version on the .org repo, and then also the pro version. And so there's nothing wrong with XMRPC. It's actually great. XMRPC is just a protocol that you can use, that different websites use to send different bits of information. For example, you can use XMRPC to have a different app make a post for you. So like you can type it up in, let's say you're using like drafts on on your iPad, and you want to have that post to your WordPress site. You can do that by using XMRPC. And so it really is good. But if you're getting brute force attacks on there and you're seeing those attacks are being stopped, you don't have anything to worry about, because it sounds like whatever security you're using is doing its job by identifying those as brute force attacks and then blocking them. So it sounds to me that you are in a great situation. But again, you can disable XMLRPC if you need to. But again, this is going to conflict with the Jetpack plugin. I leave it enabled because sometimes I will connect a like a mobile app on my iPad if I'm doing any writing there, and then I want to post it up that way directly from my iPad. I have it enabled. But if you aren't doing anything like that, go ahead and just disable it, because if you're not using XMRPC, and you would know if you are, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about it. But again, it might create conflicts, and if it does, you can and enable it, or just at least disable pingbacks, block multiple authentication attempts, and it really is a cool protocol that isn't necessarily anything to be scared of, but it's just one of those things. It's like, am I using it? No. Let's just not even make it an issue then. Let's not make it a security. Let's just get rid of it. But it sounds like whatever, if it's being identified as brute force attack, sounds like you're in a good position, Steve.
Definitely. All right. So let's see here. Steve, another question, I think it's a different Steve, said, can you run security plugin along with iTheme security at the same time?
You can. You don't necessarily need to. And if you are enabling, this goes with anything. If you're running multiple pieces of software, multiple plugins that do a similar thing, make sure that you're not enabling, like you shouldn't have security and iTheme security prevent brute force attacks or lock out brute force attacks, because that could result in a conflict. And you don't need multiple plugins to do that. Multiple plugins does not necessarily mean more security. A lot of times multiple plugins means more scripts are being just a slower site, and a lot of times if there are settings that conflict, it means a more insecure site. So I'd be if you are installing multiple security plugins, make sure that you have a good reason for it, and make sure that you aren't enabling similar features in both plugins, because that could actually result in the protection conflicting and actually making your site less secure. I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Let's see. Steven wanted to know, with Authy, can you do a push authentication instead of entering a code?
There are some. It depends. Yes, that capability is available. That capability is not available in iTheme Security Pro. But if you are using Authy, I know I do have some stuff that does send the Authy tap, or whatever it's called, Authy click, Authy tap, and then they can then you can just do the click to tap in, and then no promises. This is something that as more people are incorporating and supporting WebAuthn, I think that's going to be something that we'll have to take a look at and address, and see if we can do anything with WebAuthn, FIDO2, and CTAP to really, again, make security convenient.
For sure. Okay, here's a question from Mel. When we're talking about two-factor, iThemes Sync at one time used SMS authentication. I believe we support more features now. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure can. So iThemes Sync did at one point accept two-factor. I think we still do. We don't offer it for anyone who is creating anyone who doesn't have two-factor authentication now won't have the ability to sign up for two-factor authentication with via iTheme sync or via SMS text message, and we took that away because it isn't secure. But we also didn't want to people who are already using, because again, it's better than none. It is, SMS is better than none. It's just not the best choice. So now that the NIST has deprecated the recommendation of using SMS two-factor, we have you'll notice that we have removed that from sync as an option. And so you have two options in sync for two-factor. You have the recovery codes, and then you also can do a two-factor authentication app to, as you can see here, my primary authentication is an authentication app. So yeah, we did offer at one point, that is 100% correct, but no longer do we have that as an option for new users.
Gotcha. All right, let's see here. So in regard to, so we talked about SMS two-factor not being safe. Stacy wanted to know, is using email for two-factor safe?
It's definitely, excuse me, one second. Yeah, it is. Especially if you are, if you have your two-factor, or if you're using Gmail and your Gmail account is locked down with a strong password and two-factor authentication, it's perfect. It's perfectly safe. And even if you're just using a strong password, not two-factor, not ideal, do not recommend it. That's still going to be safer than the SMS two-factor for two reasons. Because one, if you are ever receiving, let me tell you this story. So I had this one customer that was doing a lot of their work at a library, which is public Wi-Fi, and they were receiving their two-factor tokens via SMS. And every time they went to the library to do their work, their account ended up getting hacked because the phone was set up when a Wi-Fi was enabled. They would use Wi-Fi data instead of the cellular data for text messages and phone calls. And so they were able to intercept every single one of those two factors and also see the password that they were typing in. And so they just didn't understand why. And then through a lot of back and forth between me and him, I did discover that he was using public Wi-Fi without a VPN, which made him vulnerable to attack. And so that's just one example. And the other example is the SIM hacking. You can't, because even if someone does SIM hack your phone number, and let's say you are an Android user and you have your Google account hooked up to your phone, guess what? They're just because they get your SIM, they're not going to get your Google account as well, your Gmail account as well. So if it's locked down with two-factor, that's great. I still find the convenience and security of Authy to be preferable, but that is again my preference, and you get to use whatever your preference is. But again, make sure if you are using your email account, lock it down with two-factor to protect yourself against 100% of bot attacks.
Nelson would like to know, he said he understands and uses two-factor for authentication, but he's not sure how passwordless login is more secure. He said, since it's just a link, if the link can be copied, it seems like it's less secure. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, Nelson, we are going to talk about that next. And so if I don't answer your question in the next section, please ping us again to make sure that you have the clarity you need on that.
All right, let's see. Dimitro, can I use trusted devices without enabling two-factor?
Yes.
All right. Damien wanted to know, does the trusted devices feature work with cookies?
No, there are, it does. Okay, so let me go to the trusted devices features real quick. Okay. There is some cookies involved in it, yes, because your WordPress session is a cookie. And so one of the ways it protects against tab napping is that it monitors if someone tries to hijack that cookie. So yes, that is part of it. So yes, to answer your question, but yeah, that is an important part of it because it does also protect against session hijacking. So if your session ever gets changes or sorry, let me try the words again. So it checks that your user device is not changed during a session, and then your WordPress session is a cookie. So it does utilize the cookie technology to help protect your account.
All right, let's
But the
see
actual
here.
devices are stored hashed. So this is a webinar site, so I don't think I'm going to have any trusted devices on here, but you'll find like a list of your trusted devices down here in your WordPress user profile settings. And so that information, like all your different devices that are associated with you, some that is going to be actually saved in the database as well.
All right. So there's a little bit of a discussion going on earlier in the chat about, or several people commenting on the same thing about two-factor, and and you have the Captain Picard slide as well. But two-factor is just hard to teach clients if you're working with clients. So what do you recommend for that?
I'm going to recommend passwordless logins, and we're going to talk about that because it is like I can't convince my wife to stop using passwords and use two-factor authentication, and you know I live and breathe this stuff. So it is a difficult challenge. And then the next part of today, we are going to talk about the balance between usability and security. And then I'm going to delve into that. And then if by the end of that we don't answer some of these questions, let's go ahead and bring them up in the next question section to make sure we add any clarity that is needed.
Gotcha. And several folks have asked about different hosting recommendations. We just did a webinar last week on iThemes hosting, and I dropped that link in the chat room now. If you missed that and you'd like to go look and see what iThemes hosting is about, you can certainly do that. Let's see. Yes, Ronaldo, I do have your question in queue. That's one I think we're going to save for the next session when we talk about recovering from a hack. We're going to talk about that. Let's see. Hernan wanted to know, could you talk a little about how much resources the iTheme Security Pro plugin consumes?
It's very little. And here's why. One, we purposely don't have any kind of firewall feature, which it does require an extra layer of every single thing going through PHP. And another thing is a couple years ago, about 3 years ago, Christine, who is one of the lead developers here at iThemes, he went through and he reduced the number of things that load on every page. So it's a lot more efficient. It's for the most part only loading things when they need to be loaded. And so that drastically increased the efficiency of it. And so really he increased the efficiency of iTheme Security Pro by like 70%, and reduced the drag on the site. So it is, I can very confidently and very proudly say that iTheme Security does not consume a lot. It just doesn't. And now keep in mind, if you do have, here's a pro tip for you iTheme Security Pro users is, let's go ahead and go back to our settings. And then right now, we have when an IP has reached the threshold to get banned, which means they're not just locked out, but like anytime they visit your site, they're going to see a 403 error. You're not welcome. Don't come back here again. That's going to be written to your like HT access. Let's just go to ban users. So if you end up having like 400 IPs in your ban list, what I would recommend doing is deleting the, it's going to start at the top and it's going to grow to the bottom. So I would delete like the first half of them, because that can, if you have an overabundance, because an overabundance of IPs in the ban host list, that can decrease or increase load times, and that can honestly cause trouble with your site writing to HT access, depending on how much resources your site has allocated to it. So, and the reason why it's safe to go ahead and remove the first, half of the IPs is these IPs are only leased. So they're just, because what they're doing is they're using the IPs. These IPs get a bad name. They get blocked everywhere. They get, if you're using iTheme Security Free or Pro and you're using the network, let's just look over here. If you're using the network brute force protection API, if that IP is getting locked out of a bunch of different sites, it's going to get added to the network brute force protection. And so anytime it visits any site using iTheme Security or iTheme Security Pro, they're automatically going to be locked out and they can't even get started. And so once they get to that point, that IP is no longer of any use to them. These IPs are super, super cheap to lease. You just spin up another server on AWS or whatever, and then you get a new block of IPs to use. So whoever was using those IPs maliciously have likely already moved on and are moved on to new IPs. So that's the only instance where it can affect some of the performance of your site, and that's not going to be true in all cases. Just in some shared hosting environments, that can be an issue just due to the lack of resources allocated to those sites. But for the most part, it is a super, super efficient plugin. And yeah, so it's I can say that confidently, and I can say that proudly, that the it locks down your site without slowing it down. It's awesome.
All right, let's see. Sebastian would like to know, is there a way to give core WordPress files a different path through iTheme Security? Do you recommend that?
No, there is not a way to do that in iTheme Security, and I would not recommend that. There's that is like honestly, that is you are better off spending your time doing other things. Enabling two-factor is going to do a lot more than that, because the thing is let's say that you change the path of it, there's other ways to look at it. So a lot of times, even if I just view the page source, I'm still going to be able to see that full URL path, and not necessarily just WP content and beyond. I'm still going to be able to find a full URL path anyway, just by using the browser's developable tools, or using from the command line, using different WP CLI commands to find out what the root directory is. Or if I hack into your site, and then I can just go use a plugin that is going, like Backup Buddy, that's going to tell me what that is, then it's going to tell me what that whole path is. So there's lots of other ways to find out. So even if you do change where the WordPress core files is, like most likely any person with any bit of technical skill is going to be able to identify that. And so it really that's what we call security through obfuscation. And it takes more time, can result in more conflicts, and cause more problems than any security benefit that you're going to gain from it.
All right, I have two more questions, and we're going to call it quits for a break here. Sri wanted to know, do we, if we're iTheme Security, intend on supporting OAuth 2 based authentication for admin accounts, like signing into an admin through Google?
Like from a single sign-on? Currently, we have nothing on the roadmap to do to support any specific single sign-ons. That being said, like I did have again, none of this is on the roadmap, but I did, just to I'll share it here with you guys, that I did have a conversation directly with the security developer Timothy Jacobs today about what other future more convenient, secure ways might look like, and try to get some of his thoughts on that. Again, nothing is on the roadmap, but we are looking at supporting other methods in the future. And that being said, if you are looking for using two-factor authentication, we do support like application passwords. So you can use like the REST API and XMRPC to give, like, let's say that, I don't know, you have some Google app that you created and your from your Google administrator account, and you need to give an application password in order to access the site. You can do that. But as far as those single sign-ons, right now we do not have any plans to add like Google or Facebook or Apple's SSO And however, like when we are with Backup Buddy with the remote destinations, we created an iThemes OAuth server, and that way we're eventually we like to have all of our remote destinations authenticated through that, and then maybe we can incorporate like something like that and have like an iTheme single sign-on in the future. Again, not on the roadmap, but those are places that my mind wanders when I dream of what could be.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Just for sake of time, folks, we're going to go ahead and take a break now. We're several minutes past when I wanted to take our break earlier, but lots of great questions. Really appreciate everybody asking those questions, and hopefully you've learned some things both from the presentation of the last hour as well as the excellent questions that were dropped here in the chat.
Great questions.
It's been good to have Timothy as well in the chat, who's the lead developer for iTheme Security. Appreciate you, Timothy, and helping out with some of those. Yeah, he dropped in a few minutes ago. So let's do this.
Timothy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please finish.
Timothy praise. He's awesome. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Timothy is great. One other thing I dropped in the chat just a minute ago was a link to the iThemes Help Center, specifically the iTheme Security page. Lots of great documentation for features and so forth. There's been a lot of work put into that documentation by the iTheme staff, and likely you'll find lots of answers and more detailed answers to questions that you have now or you might have in the future. So save that link, or you can just Google iThemes Security Help Center, and it'll pop right up there at the top of the list. So let's go ahead and take about Michael, let's take about a 10-minute break. It's about to be 5 minutes after. We're going to come back at 2:15 Central Time. So take a 10-minute break. We'll be silent until then for the next 10 minutes or so. And like Janet says in the chat, it is coffee time. Paul says scotch time. We'll give Michael a chance to rest his voice, and I'll see you all back at 2:15 Central Time. All right, it's 2:15 Central Time, so we are back. Hopefully you've gotten your coffee refreshed or your beverage of choice topped off. And Michael, we're about ready to move into the second section today. What are we going to cover in this last hour?
All right. Do I sound okay, first of all? Because I disconnected my AirPods, and then I was trying to use those just now as microphones. I just had to switch to Yeti, so I just want to make sure I sound clear.
You're in good shape.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so in the second half, we're going to talk about the usability versus security. And then we're also going to talk about a few best practices you can do to prevent yourself from adding vulnerabilities to your site. So let's go and hop into it. If you're ready, Nathan. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep. One thing I did want to mention is Jim had asked a question just a moment ago about checklists or written recommendations and so forth. I will direct you all to a link I just dropped in the chat, which is a webinar from last month that Michael and I did on iTheme Security Setup Essentials. We basically walked through every one of the features of iTheme Security Pro and talked about what to use, when to use, why to use each one of those. Really helpful webinar. So as far as recommendations for our plugin in particular, that's a great place to start. For the others, we talked about a lot of things, so I'm not sure if we have anything else to show you with two-factor and that sort of thing, but that iTheme Security Setup Essentials webinar, I think, is a wonderful start to using the iTheme Security plugin. All right, let's talk about passwords.
All right. Passwords are so 2000 and late. I'm not sure Fergie said that, but I attribute it to her anyways. So there's three main reasons why you should, and if you've been paying attention to the news at all lately, really, all the major tech companies are trying to kill off passwords. And there's a few different reasons why. One, entering the correct password does not prove your identity. It just allows systems such as WordPress to confirm the password matches the one assigned to the user. While that might sound a little bit nitpicky, there's a massive difference between confirming your password and actually confirming your identity. So, brute force attacks, again, just refers to that the trial method of trying to discover the correct username and password. And so with the increase of people relying on databases that already have a bunch of hack passwords in there, and then I found a tool one time when I was just scouring around Google that again, no code needed. It had a good graphical user interface, and then what it did, it went around looking for WordPress admins, and once it got to the WordPress admins, it had a whole database, a list of the most common WordPress usernames and passwords that were involved in database dumps. So these were just WordPress usernames and passwords. So it was a tool specifically built for attacking WordPress sites with well-known usernames and passwords. And so that's just a perfect example of how it does confirm that the correct password was used, but it does not confirm that the right person is using the password. And as I just talked about, these database dumps that consistently just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And a lot of these dumps contain a ton of sensitive information. So, for example, a single database dump that was hosted on Mega had 1,160,253,228 unique combinations of email addresses and passwords. That was billion with a B. And that kind of score will provide a malicious bots with over 1 billion sets of credentials to use in the brute force attack. So again, relying solely on passwords is not ideal. And again, password best practices are inconvenient. Like, I've shared about how even family members, I have a hard time getting them to take this seriously because like they just see, oh my gosh, this sounds just so cumbersome. It sounds intimidating to even get started, to make sure that I have all these different requirements. And then, and then a lot of places they have their expiring passwords, and then they have to come up with a whole nother password that has this. So it's inconvenient and intimidating. And so while with all that said, WordPress security practices are super important. This is what we talked about earlier, is that Google says that 100% of bot attacks and 99% of bulk phishing attacks will be stopped just by using two-factor authentication. And, but we understand that the reason why 90% of Gmail users don't use two-factor authentication because it adds an extra step in their already busy day. The reason why no one, like my wife, uses a password manager is because they're too tired to think about managing something else. My wife, for example, she works a full-time job. She's also studying to get her real estate license. And on Thursdays, she has helping hands. And then she has to take my daughter to gymnastics and then go to the grocery store. So her day is full of a bunch of other stuff. So the thought of adding more to her day, even if it's going to secure her account, it's just like, why? Like, I don't have time. I don't have the mental capacity to do anything else. So I don't want to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. Out of sight, out of mind. So again, this is the balance of usability versus security. You want people to be able to secure their account while getting out of their way, not making them jump through hoops to be secure. That's why there's been a paradigm shift with the web security community. Like the security professionals, we're starting to realize that the onus is on us to secure the web. Security should make it hard on the bad guys, but not hard on you, not hard on the people who are just trying to log into their account to maybe you have an LMS site and it's just a student who's just trying to take another course between them already working 2 jobs because they're trying to gain the skills to better their life, and they're tired and they just want to get in there and learn this material. So it should protect them and stay out of their way, because their job isn't security. That's not where they spend their time. And we're never going to make these people security experts. And so that's why the passwordless login future is exciting to me. And this is something that I'm really been paying attention to. And like, I look for updates on this constantly, because it is, here's one thing that I can say about everyone here at iThemes is, and the whole reason why I got the job I have now is because I fought for the people who are using our products, because I see them as people. We all try to design everything that we do with a sense of empathy. One thing that makes Timothy so great is he's not just a developer, he also has clients. He deals with these people. He knows what you guys are going through. And so he tries to provide a tool that makes it easier for you to secure your site and easier for the people who rely on you to be secure. And that's why I like this, is because I want everyone to be able to feel safe on the internet without having to become an expert. So if you aren't familiar with passwordless logins are, you probably already using it if you have a any kind of smartphone or if you're using Windows Hello. And so it's just like you can use like your Face ID or your thumbprint, and then that is going to take place of your password. So it's going to verify that you're who you say you are, verify your identity, as opposed to just verifying your password. And this is what I am looking forward to about the passwordless future. I can't wait until every account is secure this way, because it is it's really, really exciting. So, but what about the passwordless present? So more and more things, browsers are starting to accept WebAuthn and making it easier. I'm pretty sure that Safari has now taken the WebAuthn, which is just an authentication protocol for passwordless logins, and they've taken out the experimental features and put it in one of their main features, because it's happening. But iTheme Security Pro has a new login method that allows you to require users to use a strong password and two-factor authentication without them ever entering a password or an extra authentication account. So let's real quick, let's go back and talk about what that ring hack that we talked about earlier, right? So these people whose accounts got hacked, they were probably using weak passwords that were possibly could have been part of a have I been pwned database dump that's full of compromised passwords. And they weren't using two-factor authentication. If they were, that, like, I just keep thinking over and over again, like, I have a daughter, and like not anymore, just because it's concerning, but like I had a little Google, one of those little Google Home pucks in a room, and the fact that like someone could possibly take control of that microphone and scare her in her own house, in her own room, that's what I'm talking about. That should not happen. So that's why, sorry, I'm teared up just thinking about it, because being a father, sometimes you are salty for that kind of stuff. So they didn't know any better to do that stuff. No one told them that, hey, you should have two-factor authentication, otherwise your daughter might be scared of her own house. So that's why this stuff is so exciting to me, because like we can do things to protect people and make the internet safe. So that's why we wanted to create passwordless login as an alternative, because no matter what, like I'll go back to that last point. Sorry, I skipped over that point. Is that everyone still blamed Amazon, even though like they did their part, they secured their part of it. That server and everything else was secure. The thing that was weak was the credentials that the people are using to log in, and that's how those Ring cameras and microphones got hacked. And so they're going to blame you, even if you provide them the tools to use two-factor authentication and use a strong password. But if they don't take that opportunity to use them and to lock down their accounts, they're going to blame you when anything happens. You know, if my wife didn't have me to point a finger and say, haha, I told you so, which is not always a great best way to handle things, but she would have just blamed eBay, not ever thinking that it was her credentials that were the vulnerability, and there wasn't a vulnerability on eBay. So let's talk about passwordless logins and who should use them. Password logins are for people who want to increase the security of their site without having people suffer from any friction in usability. So let's go back a slide real quick. So let's talk about a little bit what this looks like. So in here we have the passwordless logins, and what this does, it allows you to give people two different options to log in. They can either use the traditional username and password, or they can get a magic link sent to their email and then log in that way. Again, that friend of mine who I set up that site for him, and I set up that site for him and enabled passwordless login for him and allowed him to bypass two-factor authentication, because even though I know that using a traditional login and using two-factor authentication is really a secure way to go, but it's you're not going to be able to convince everyone to use it. Like you're talking about your clients, you're not going to be able to get all of them to use it. So what can you do? What can we do? What we can do is go ahead and we can go ahead and force them to use two-factor authentication. We can force them to use two-factor authentication to protect their account, because even if their account gets hacked, they're going to blame you. Why didn't you do enough to secure my site? And then we can enable, oops, went back in here. We can enable the password requirements to make sure that they aren't using compromised passwords. They aren't using a weak password. And so when we're creating that account for them, guess what? A strong password is automatically generated for them. Guess what? We can force two-factor, but when they log in, we can set up passwordless login to have method first. So when they have method first, what that's going to look like, let's go ahead and let's just select all for right now. And then let's just see what this looks like. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see the incognito tab?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. So this is what it's going to look like. It's going to say, hey, you want an easier way to log in? Email you magically. You can sign in instantly. And so before, they don't even have to see the login form. They don't even have to see the two-factor requirement. They don't have to mess with any of that. But in the background, you can have their account locked down and secure using those methods, but never getting in their way. And so I can say, hey, I want that magic link. Send that over to me. And then, so let's go ahead and send that. And then on this other window, I'm going to log into my Gmail account. Okay. Let's go ahead and log out here as well. Let's bring this over here. And so again, we saw that all we saw was, hey, you want an easy way to log in? Click this button. Oh, sweet. Now all I have to do is click another button. And then, yeah, this is actually the trusted devices. Or what? Oh, sorry. No, this is because it came from an incognito tab. So what this is doing is, so this is something Timothy put in as a fail-safe so you don't lock yourself out. So let's say that you're on an iPad and you are on Safari, but then you open up the Gmail app. So it's going to look like the request is coming from a different place. So when you're coming in through here, you're going to have to confirm that login request. So now I have to continue back into my original browser because that's from where it came from. And since I didn't, oh gosh dang, I forgot to have it bypass the two-factor authentication. I'll show you where you do that though in the settings. Let me bring this over here for a second.
And these are the challenges of a live demo.
Ah. Hold on, let me bring all this over. 1 second. And there is my daughter that I talked about earlier.
Yeah, this is not nearly as complicated as it's seeming here. Michael has several accounts and several browser tabs open. And
it's really just...
plus, we get to look at Michael's cute daughter while we're waiting.
Yeah. Okay, so then it's not that hard. So let's go back to these security settings real quick and show you what I didn't do. So that first confirm or deny, that was because I started in an incognito tab and then I completed it in a non-incognito tab. So that's why we saw the first confirm device. But let's go down to passwordless login and then allow two-factor bypass is enabled. But if I go to my profile, I have not. Oh, I did do that. Hey, Timothy, if you're in chat, maybe you can tell us why that happened. I'm thinking it's because I was going from an incognito tab to a different tab. So that extra security required me to continue to enter that two-factor token. That being said,
Timothy says you
these
need
are
to uncheck the use two-factor during passwordless login.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Timothy.
It's that big checkbox
Okay.
right there.
The one right in front of my face. Thank you, Timothy. So anyways, had I not had that checked, I would have been able to log right in. So back to what I was saying, my message about making it easy. It's about making it easy though for your customers, your clients. Like, how do we, those of us who are here, who are obviously care about security, care about preventing disaster, those of us who are going to be more techy than our clients, like no matter how many, posts that we show them, how much proof that we show them, how using a strong password and two-factor authentication is going to protect your account, and it's going to make the internet so much safer for you. No matter how much we tell them that, like it's not their area of expertise. How many times do we hear them say, I'm a non-techie. I'm a non-techie. I just need to go in and do my work. They don't understand it. They don't care to understand it. So it's about locking down their account, protecting them from themselves. Protect them from themselves. So you lock it down with a strong password, you lock it around with two-factor authentication, but you give them an easy way to log in. Because at the end of the day, even if you beg and plead with them, hey, like you don't understand, like you have administrator capabilities. You can make a ton of changes to your site. And if your account were to fall into the hands of a bad actor, so much damage can be done. And so, if you can find a way to protect them without getting in their way, I think that is what the future of security is going to be. I really do. It's how do we protect the people? It's hard to make people care about things they don't understand. It just is. And so how can we make it easy for them? How can they don't want to think about it? How do we set them up for success, and so they don't have to think about it? That's why I'm so excited about passwordless logins. And like I said, seeing stuff like that ring stuff, if we can do that, if we can just stop that stuff from happening, if we can stop people who are just trying to, like, I don't know, have a side hustle, e-commerce site, and then just they aren't going to know what to do when disaster does strike, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. And it's something I'm really, really passionate about, and something I really, really believe in. And it's going to, I think, the passwordless future is going to prevent a lot of disasters, and that's what I'm really excited about. All right, so moving on. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is malware scans. Like, you need to be checking the temperature of your site, checking the health of your site, and so you're going to want to perform regular automatic malware scans. And the reason why you want to do this is because it's important to be notified as soon as possible whether or not your site's infected. Because as soon as you can get that information, the faster you can take action. And okay, go back. And so there's a couple different places that you can do get malware scans. You can go to the security site, and you can have them do a remote scan. If you have iTheme Security Pro, you can enable to automatically scan your site twice daily using the security scanner. You can check Google Safe Browser, and then you can also check Web Inspector. But again, this is something like you just want to automate. Like, if you can, just automate this, that way you don't have to think about it, and then get automatic notifications whenever anything happens, or a scan fails, or you need to be made aware of an issue. Another thing you can do is to help prevent disaster and to stay mindful of everything is to record file changes. Because again, like, if you catch any unexpected changes, it's important to be able to take action right away. And we're going to talk more about this tomorrow. User logging is another thing. It's you, especially those users that have the privileges necessary to make changes on your site. It's important to log what activity they're doing. And that way, if you ever come across, like maybe like I logged in from an unknown location, and that's not expected, that could be the tip that you need, or the information that you hand over to the security researchers they need to find out when to follow the breadcrumbs of an attack. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that and logging tomorrow. And another thing, your host, now most of the time, your hosting provider is going to provide you with an SSL certificate. What an SSL certificate is going to do is it's going to make the communication between the client, your web browser, and the server a little bit more secure, a lot bit more secure than if without an SSL certificate. So that does, it helps encrypt the communication. So if I'm typing in a credit card number or a username and password, it makes it harder for someone to sniff that out, and a malicious actor to like get in between that communication and steal that credit card information or your login credentials. Now, if your host isn't providing you with a SSL certificate, or they're trying to charge you an exorbitant amount for the SSL certificate, iThemes hosting, you get SSL certificates for free. You don't have to worry about it. Automatically renews, automatically updates. But if someone's trying to charge you an arm and a leg, there is an easy way to add a free SSL certificate. So Let's Encrypt, they provide you with free certificates, and then you can use this thing called CertBot, which is a command line tool. And then you can, if you look, you can find instructions for this. And then what this will do, you can set it up to install a certificate from Let's Encrypt, and you can set it up to automatically renew. That way you don't have to forget about it, because these SSL certificates, they do expire. A lot of times it's 3-6 months. And then if Safari just announced that SSL certificates that don't expire for 18 months, they're going to start flagging those, because there's a little bit, the length of certificate is too long. And so it's important that you have a renewal schedule on this, and make sure your SSL certificates have a shorter shelf life than 18 months. Yeah, I agree with. Sorry, I pulled up chat and saw Julian. I agree with Apple. I agree too. Like it's a just something you can do to make sure that that certificate is still valid and is still matches the domain, and just another good tool to have. So another thing we need to talk about is, and I'll speed up my talking, is keeping your software up to date. So this Equifax breach that everyone knows about, that they recently, they were in the news again recently about the payout. They have no excuse not to update. So the reason why they got hacked is they had an outdated version of Apache, and it was actually a 0-day vulnerability. It was kind of a big deal. I remember Chris, who works here in the iThemes office, was sounding the alarms like, hey, everyone, we need to update, we need to update, we need to update, because there's a 0-day in Apache. We need to make sure that we get this vulnerability taken care of. And Equifax, they chose not to do that. And they chose not to do that, and chose not to do that. And 3 months after the patch was made available, they end up, that vulnerability was exploited. And that's how they were able to breach the Equifax database. So keeping your software up to date is critical, because updates don't just include cool new features and bug fixes. A lot of times they include critical security patches. So one thing you can do is like set up an update schedule to make sure you're receiving the latest security patches. Make sure your host is applying the server-side security patches in a timely manner, and then using the WordPress iTheme security WordPress version management feature, you can actually automate the security. So let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick, because this is actually pretty cool. Timothy did a great job on this, and the reason why I like this so much is, sorry, there we go. Sometimes it's hard for me to see what's right in front of my face, as we saw earlier. So what you can do is, let's say that you have a particular plugin that you're scared that if it updates, there's gonna, without you knowing it, or if it's automatic, it might create some kind of issue on your site. What you can do is, first of all, let's just talk about what this is. So what this does is, it is going to allow you to automatically, anytime an update shows up over here in your updates, it's going to allow iTheme security to go ahead and update these plugins for you. And this is important because, like we said, that a lot of times these what security researchers who find these different exploits will do will release the information about the vulnerability at the same time that the patch is being released by the developer. So there's going to be a patch and people are going to have opportunity to patch it. But if you aren't updating on a regular basis, you might miss a security patch. And there was a theme REX plugin last week that got announced. It was a 0-day vulnerability that gave people the ability to escalate their user to the administrator capability. So they could sign up as a subscriber and then escalate their user to the administrator capabilities. Then they could then take over your site. So, and then a week before that, there was another theme related one. I can't remember the name of the plugin right now, but that security patch for was released. And so if you have the plugin update, your site's going to be secure. And so, I recommend that you tick these to all of your plugins automatically update. But if you do have a concern about your one of your themes updating because you don't want it to crash your site, you can either disable it or you can delay it. Like, if you're using a particular plugin, say that 2019, every time it updates for some reason, it breaks your site, so you can disable it. Or you can say, I just want to make sure that I delay these updates by like 3 days, just by 3 days. That way, if the update does get pushed and there's a bunch of bugs in it, 3 days, you can probably guarantee that that developer is going to have bug fixes pushed out to address these issues 3 days by 3 days after the release. So again, I'd recommend all, but you can customize this to only automatically update the plugins that you feel comfortable with. Okay, and there's not an excuse to update. I've heard all of the different excuses in the world. I've added custom code that will be removed after updating. That's not worth the security risk that you can have, especially if you're running a version of WordPress that's out of date or whatever. Updates will break my site. Again, you can delay it, or you can, any of the ones that you're concerned that the update will break the site, you can wait until you are the one managing the updates and making sure they go okay. If you prefer the older version, again, it's get used to the new one, because the outdated one, especially if it's a piece of software that's reached end of life and they're not going to be receiving security patches, it's just better. Let's get to the new one. Let's get those security vulnerabilities out of here. And updates take too long. They only take too long if you put them off. So again, not a great excuse. If you ever need a reminder why running the latest version is essential, just go check out like the CVE detail site to see what vulnerabilities are known and what vulnerabilities even possibly are being actively exploited with the versions of the old software that you're running that you refuse to update. That is a good way to have a reality check of the importance of updating. Only you can prevent outdated software. Seriously, you have to update. The number one reason why WordPress sites get hacked is because people are running outdated, vulnerable software. That's why I'm pressing so much on this point right now, is updating, enabling automatic updates, because people are, this is why people get hacked. It's completely preventable. These hacks, these kinds of attacks are completely preventable. All you have to do is update. So I'm begging you, please, please, please update. Don't let your site get taken over. Update. You can use the WordPress Codex as instructions on how to enable automatic updates for your do-it-yourselfers. But for those who are a little bit more squeamish, again, the iTheme Security Pro, that version management feature is great. It makes it super, super easy. And then another thing to think about is limiting PHP exploit opportunities. So if you have any unnecessary plugins or themes installed on your site that you aren't using, just get rid of them, because those are just more access points that you're adding to your site that don't need to be there. So if you're not using them, get rid of them. Don't just deactivate them, just get rid of them. And then avoid using plugins that have been abandoned. If you take a look at the our WordPress vulnerability roundups, you can see that even this last one, there was this ACS access by WebSoft has a known vulnerability, and guess what? It's not been patched because the plugin was removed from the repository. And a lot of times, it won't. You'll find out the plugin has been abandoned, and so there'll never, ever, ever be a security update applied because there's no one developing it anymore. So make sure that you're not using an abandoned plugin. If a plugin hasn't received an update in 6 months, that's something worth looking into. That doesn't necessarily mean it's been abandoned. It could just mean that it's feature complete and doesn't is only receiving updates when there's any compatibility issues with the latest versions of WordPress or PHP. So again, if it's been more than 6 months, I definitely would recommend you looking into it, but it does not mean it has been abandoned. And installing software from only trusted sources. So again, only install WordPress plugins and themes from reputable resources. Quick story, I had a customer of ours who actually paid for a plugin. I paid for iTheme Security Pro on a sketchy site, and then not from us, and they ended up installing iTheme Security Pro, which was supposed to secure their site. Someone had modified the Security Pro plugin to with malicious code. So they spent money, which was less than what they would pay for on iThemes.com, granted, but I don't think they thought that they were also going to install malware on their site when they were just trying to protect their site. So make sure if the deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. And if you're not buying it directly from a developer or a trusted WordPress repo like ThemeForest or what have you, I would definitely contact the developer to make sure that they're affiliated, because you don't want to, you don't want to be the person installing the malware on your site. That is the worst. I felt so bad for her because she was the one responsible. She paid to compromise her site. It was, again, I hate stuff like that. And again, make backups of your website. That's a good, we'll talk more about this tomorrow and how to create a good backup strategy and what needs to be part of your backup strategy. Backup Buddy's great for that. And again, so I also added on this the WordPress security checklist that you can look at. And again, don't forget to take advantage of this 2-for-1 combo deal. You're getting 2 plugins for the price of 1, plus you're getting additional bonus stash. And also a good thing to keep in mind, when it comes to renewal time, you're going to have that 2 for this combo pack. So super, super, super exciting. And yeah, so I'm ready for more questions.
All right, excellent. Good stuff, Michael. Folks, if you have a question that you've not asked yet, please drop that in the chat room and we'll get that going. Let's see. So a couple questions about some things that we get these questions quite a bit, actually. Ornaldo asked early on, he's receiving the malware found alert, but when he contacts the web host or goes into the into kind of, not sure I understand the question. He goes, everything seems clean. What do you know? Can you talk about why that would happen?
I honestly not try. There's several reasons why that can happen. One, it could just be not connecting to the site. And so what security does, if let's say that when they're trying to scan their site and they end up, the server returns a 500 error, that could be a sign that your site is down, which could be a sign that your site was taken down by malware or by an attacker. So they're going to go ahead and issue a warning for that. That being said, I can't, without having any more specifics, I won't be able to troubleshoot or diagnose that for you. And a lot of times that is going to, we can trigger the scan, but after that, it's kind of out of our hands. It's going to be between your web server, your web host, and security to complete that connection and complete the communication. So that being said, I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to submit a support ticket to our support team, and they'll be able to get the more details from you and help troubleshoot. Because it's anything that I say beyond that is, including what I said, honestly, it's just speculation on my part. So I don't want to connect dots that aren't there and lead you down the wrong path.
Absolutely. All right, let's see here. So another error that we get from time to time, Katie said her malware scan result says unable to properly scan your site, timeout reached, and so forth. Can you talk about that issue?
Yeah, that is, if it's timing out, that is going to be something you're going to need to reach out to your host to figure out why it's timing out.
Right. Let's see here. TJ had asked early on, do you have recommended methods for cleaning up a compromised site?
We'll hop into more of this tomorrow, but one, if you have a backup that you can use to restore from, that you can guarantee is going to restore to a clean state, that's a great way to do it. And then there's also different like hack repair companies out there. So depending on what's going on, the severity of the hack and the complexity of your site is going to change my suggestion on what to do. If you just have a basic like brochure site, rolling back an update is probably the best and most efficient way to go. If you have a more complex site, you might want to take advantage of like security's hack repair specialist, so they can identify the hack at the point of entry and make sure it gets patched. That way you're not putting up anything up to chance. A lot of times like a good backup will be up. So last year there was the social warfare plugin allowed people to end up like creating a user, then escalating it to an admin account, and that ended up causing a hack. If you identified that as what the vulnerability was, you can just roll back to before that user was escalated, and then know that you can apply that patch and your site will be safe. So again, it's just going to depend on your situation, and there's no best suggestion. Every situation is going to be different, and there's no like one size fits all. But we're going to talk about some more of this stuff tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's see. We're starting. Folks are starting to drop off here. I do want to just. We have lots of questions here, and we'll get to all of those. The one thing I do want to mention, Michael's been talking a lot about what's going on tomorrow. One of the questions we just had was, we'll be talking about how to restore from a backup tomorrow. I think that is on the docket. Is that right, Michael?
That is correct.
And I do want to invite y'all to come back tomorrow because we will be talking about recovering from a bad situation. So backing up and restoring will be all part of that. And also, as some of you I know are working with clients, we've had some client-oriented questions, and that's what the Wednesday webinar is all about. It's a different time, though. It is from 10 a.m. until noon on Wednesday, Central Time, and I'll be talking about how to package and price security services for clients. I've been doing that for many years. I'm celebrating 25 years of working with clients on the web this year, and I'll be giving you some tips on how to package and price services for security. And now we had a bunch of questions drop in, so let me go back to those. Let's see. Jim would like us to talk a little bit more about certain security plugins, talk about a firewall. We have a malware or a security network. Can you just talk about that approach to security, Michael?
I am going to, granted, full disclosure, I work for iTheme Security, but for WordPress plugins, I'm gonna recommend iTheme Security Pro. I think again, like I'm gonna praise Timothy, and what is great about having Timothy work on iTheme Security Pro is that, one, he has clients. He knows what it's like to work with clients. He knows what it's like. He's not stuck in a bubble of just developing features and ideas for people he's just guessing exist. He knows them. And he also works a part of he's part of the WordPress core team. And that's why I have extreme confidence in him and his ability to create a plugin that he puts these on his sites. He puts these on his client site. I say this all the time, and Timothy, I trust. So as far as plugins go, like really, you can't go wrong with iTheme Security Pro because of the people who are involved with it. And again, obviously, I work for iTheme, so I am biased, but everything else I said was fact. And then as far as firewall go, my personal opinion on that is that a great way to do that is use something like Cloudflare. And depending on how big your site is and what you need, for a lot of people, like for some my personal sites, like I have a free Cloudflare account that is more than enough. Like I don't get a lot of traffic, so that's why the free is more than enough for my site as far as the firewall protection goes. But I would highly recommend having the server, the firewall not lay on the site. Have that be a like a network firewall instead of like a local firewall, because a local firewall is more likely to increase load times and slow down your site a little bit, and also cause conflict. So where if it can go to a super fast caching environment like Cloudflare, and then it can handle the request there, and before it ever actually touches your site, I think that's the way to go. So there's other network firewalls out there, including security, that you can check out. So if you're looking for a firewall, look at those two. And then was there another? What was another part of that question?
No, you got it. And actually, if you could go back one slide, we had a request to see the security checklist. So if we can go back to just back up one slide. There we go. Awesome. So John, there you are, sir. Okay, let's see. Bruce is asking, so if we're running daily backups, and we'll be talking more about backups tomorrow, but if we're running daily backups, a backup could be compromised. So I'm assuming, Bruce, that you mean, I'm backing up a hacked site. Michael, how do we identify a clean backup?
There's multiple different ways. One, you can run, if you have the capability to, you can run a malware scan on it. If you're using, which we'll talk more about this tomorrow, if you're using a Backup Buddy Stash Live, all those backups are going to be scanned for malware. And there are different things that you can use when you're going through the recovery process to help you identify when the site was compromised. So after you identify that when the site was compromised, you have a better idea of the timeline that you need to roll back before. So make sure you check out or come back tomorrow, because we're going to go over how to use your WordPress security logs to kind of use those as a resource, as a tool to restore your site.
Yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow's going to be a great day. Let's see. James is saying, I'm getting constant site lockout from iTheme security. Someone's trying to log into the admin area. It's increasing every day. What would you suggest in that situation?
Just one, it sounds like iTheme security is doing a job in locking out those users. So that's a great news. And if you need to, you can decrease the threshold. Let's go over here real quick. So in your global settings, you can temporarily, if you're in a time of heavy attack, you can decrease your threshold. But honestly, what I would do if I were you is go to your notification center and then make sure that you have Security Digest enabled, and then go down here and disable site lockout, because you installed a security plugin to manage the security of your site. If they're being locked out, that means that your site is being protected, and iTheme Security Pro is doing its job. And iTheme Security Pro is a bragger, and you don't. So it wants to tell you every single time it does something good. So I just disabled this, and that way you're not being inundated with notifications of iTheme Security Pro doing the job that you paid it to do. So, but you can, if you want to, you can decrease the blacklist or the blacklist threshold. So within after 2 lockouts, they're banned from the site and they get added to your ban list. Or you can go to the notification center and the daily digest will still give you a rundown of how many lockouts you had, so you can still see all that information. But yeah, just to quiet some of the noise, I would just recommend disabling the site lockouts notifications, because during periods of heavy attack, I think like security just likes to tell you everything that it is doing.
Yep, for sure. I mean, you want to know it, right? But then once you know it, you can disable it.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Janet would like to know, is it a good idea to use the away mode in iTheme security to hide the login page? When would you want to do that?
I never, this is personal preference. I never use, I never use away mode. The only reason why I use away mode is enabled here is because I used this same site when we did the last webinar, and someone asked about away mode and disabling it from sync. And then as far as the hide backend feature goes, which is the thing that lets you make a custom URL, the only time that I would ever recommend using a custom URL is if you're trying to do it for branding purposes. And to be frank, we moved it to the advanced page of the security settings just because, one, it can cause conflicts. Two, it is another example of security through obfuscation. There's other methods of logging in, including the XML-RPC and the REST API. And you can look up an iThemes blog post that I wrote about WordPress login security. And it's kind of like an older idea of securing the login. Like it's if you have the measures put in place that we talked about today of securing your login, this isn't going to add a lot of benefit to you. And unfortunately, there are still some developers that are hard coding the URL. And so what I mean by that, they require the WordPress login page to work, to sign in or perform some function. And so they have had hard coded in the yoursite.com/wp login.php. And so this URL is hard coded. So if something else is there, so let's say that you decided to use the hide backend feature and to change it to super, not really super secret hidden background, it's going to create a conflict because even though it's not best practices, you're not supposed to hard code URLs. It does happen. So this is another, a lot of times security through obfuscation creates more issues and more problems than they actually add security to your site. So I would not recommend ever doing it unless you can, not for security purposes. If you want to do it for branding purposes, that's another thing. Like super cool site, that way you can do your site, super cool site, whatever it is. But even at that point, I would just say leave it the same. In away mode, like if you do know that no one else is going to, this is fine. Because when you do enable away mode and someone tries to access the login page, and it's during those times that you expect no one else to be working on your site, it will redirect to the home page. But again, if you lock down if you use real security measures, like we talked about earlier, like two-factor is 100% effective against bot attacks, this doesn't add very much, if that makes sense. Again, it can't hurt. It can't hurt. But if you don't have sync to disable it in the security module, and you don't know how to log in via FTP to disable away mode when you really need to log into your site, you're going to be upset this is enabled.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are over time today, folks. Michael, thanks so much for 2 great hours of content and really good answers to all the questions that came in. Lots of folks here today. Really appreciate everybody logging in and being with us for this 2-hour webinar. We have 2 more hours coming up tomorrow and 2 more hours on Wednesday. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about recovering from a bad situation in WordPress, what you should be monitoring, how to know you've been hacked, how to restore a backup. All of that is coming tomorrow, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. Central, same time as today. Also on Wednesday, slightly different times, 10 a.m. to noon Central. I'll be talking about providing security services for your clients using iTheme Security and Backup Buddy as the core of your tool set. Michael, any last thoughts as we're wrapping up today?
I just want to really thank everyone for taking the time to come here. That the more people who are proactive about security, the more people who are willing to take the time to increase their knowledge, is just going to make the internet as a whole safer. And it's super exciting that all you guys came here today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm dropping the links one more time for the today's slides and the replay. I'll have the replay up in about an hour or so at the link that I just dropped in the chat room. It's the same link that you used to register for this event. And we had a question earlier in the chat. If you want to reuse those slides to show coworkers or friends or any of those things, we would encourage you to do that because
absolutely,
yeah, any effort we can all make together to make WordPress and the internet more secure, that's better for everybody. So by all means, share away. And also, if you want to share, you'll be able to just share the link, the replay link I just dropped in the chat with anybody that might want to re-watch all these things that we're talking about this week. So, Michael, I'll see you back tomorrow at the same time, 1 o'clock Central.
Yes, sir. I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Hopefully you folks will be with us as well. So until then, hope you have a great rest of the night. From everybody here at iThemes, we will see you tomorrow.